patriarchy told you that you need to suppress your emotions and you need to perform this unrealistic expectation of what masculinity is, but none of you are happy. All of you are empty and miserable and walking around like robots, really and truly.
What?
So get out of this system, okay? Because the patriarchy has damaged you. It's made you entitled. It's made you see women as sexual objects.
Man them down. Listen, the content that I have for you guys here today is so ridiculous. It's so incredible. It's so stupid and it's so delusional. I'll tell you guys at the onset of this content, if the US doesn't stand up and put its balls out on the table, we will become the UK. Full stop. All right. we do not want to become the UK. The UK currently is feminism on steroids, and the proof of that is within this content that I have for you guys here today, one of which it is young UK women, right, speaking about the patriarchy and oppression and about how men ain't shit, while also two young men are in the exact same room, yesing and agreeing with them to death. Young men, where are your balls at? Nevertheless, we're going to talk about this conversation and attempts to rewrite this conversation in the face of evil. So yeah, buckle up, because we ain't just driving. We got to take a flight all the way over to the UK in order to encroach on this particular subject. What I'll also say is that you can tell the difference between people who have been educated on feminism and patriarchy via TikTok versus those that live in reality and they face reality and respond to it and the consequences of it in a legitimate fashion. All right. So let's deep dive. Without further ado,
men need to start realizing, okay, it's time to forget about the patriarchy and what the patriarchy told you, because the patriarchy told you that you need to suppress your emotions and you need to perform this unrealistic expectation of what masculinity is, but none of you are happy. All of you are empty and miserable and walking around like robots, really and truly.
What?
So get out of this system, okay? Because the patriarchy has damaged you. It's made you entitled. It's made you see women as sexual objects. It hasn't given you a fair chance in life. And now we have things like the male loneliness epidemic. But it's because men have brought it on themselves. It's nothing to do with women. Women are here trying to reach you guys, trying to feel you guys, trying to connect with you guys. But the patriarchy told you that you needed to suppress your emotions, that you needed to perform masculinity 24/7, and you can't be vulnerable and you can't surrender. Well, now we have these problems.
Listen. If you have a male somewhere in your family, a brother, a nephew, an uncle, and you care about them, okay, send this content over to them. The degree and the level of manipulation tactics that she just used in those couple of quick sentences within her diatribe of bullshit, right? Like, I see so much of these young men today just listening to this shit and being convinced that they are less than or not worthy of. And she just rattles these things off with her TikTok brain in a way that makes it seem true or real. Like, how can you say that the patriarchy teaches men to sexualize women? Meanwhile, you and your homegirls' ass cheeks are available for consumption for free 99 across the internet. Is it the patriarchy that's teaching that? Or are you putting yourselves in a position to have that content consumed? It is not some patriarchal regime. In fact, the patriarchal regime would not allow you to put your sphincter online in the internet. But this is performative feminism, one of which they constantly try to convince you that they're in a violent, oppressive system. Meanwhile, they have no idea what violent, oppressive system actually looks like. Drop any of these weirdos in a third world country and see how they fare. That'd be the world's greatest reality TV show. They'd be crying to come back to the United States of America. They'd be crying to come back to a UK. All right? Let's proceed.
If I was to envision a future that was a lot better in the context of gender, it would be one where, you know, someone's quality of life isn't directly rooted in the gender they identify with. I think that's the most important thing, is that you're not more likely to suffer from something because of your gender or gender-based violence or femicide or even mental health. I think it's...
This is so stupid. The reason why it is that because guess who men have to be most worrisome of violence being perpetrated onto them, it's other men, right? So you bringing up that just because I'm a woman, right? Like violent things happen out in society. Yes, there's certain type of violence that is more accompanied on male to female, right? But we all have to be mindful of the enemy at the gate. But at the same time that you say all this, guess who's going to protect you against the enemy at the gate? Men, masculine, good-hearted, moral, integrity-filled men. And that's what they fail to see.
Important for us to embrace even gender fluidity, right?
What?
I think there's many different ways we're all showing up, and we're not bound by these rigid boxes
She looks like a
that
ghost.
actually perpetuate the system. As much as we're all victims of a system, I think there's an accountability level there. And in that vision that I would love to have, I think it's also for women as well to see how our new status in society is impacting men. And I feel like I always try and stray away from the idea when we talk about women's rights or women's empowerment, we have to kind of be like, and what about the men? Because we're so used to being like, you have to bring them in. But it's clear that there's a conversation being had that we're not privy to. And no matter if it's true or not, they are internalizing something. And unless we have that communication, there's no point being right when you're not communicating, because we, you know what I mean, like when you're just shouting, they say when two people argue, no one knows who the fool is, right? So we need to...
They complain about bringing men into the conversation because it's not about equality. That's what I've been talking about on this platform. They don't want to consider the other, who their decisions might be impacting. No. Let's not bring the men in. That's why they don't want the men to have a say in any of this. What about the men? It's not about equality. It's about power. It's about gaining modern benefits while also retaining traditional benefits. That's why women like this shame men for consuming pornographic content. Meanwhile, we'll never talk ill of that industry or a woman being promiscuous or selling her body for money, because to her, it's women empowerment. Meanwhile, the woman that is participating in that activity, she would never touch any of her clients with a 20-foot pole. She wants nothing to do with them. And in fact, it more than likely discussed that OF model, let's say, that this guy is messaging, ew, I don't want nothing to do with him. I just want his money off of him. Imagine the inequalities of a system where you fail at every stretch to hold a woman accountable for something while always demonizing the man in that very same equation.
Be able to have that discourse for us to move forward and for our children's children, the next generation. So I'd love to pose it to you. What does like a future, right, in the context of gender that we would love to live in?
I feel
Well,
like
first, it's not going to involve gender fluidity or whatever that is. You know, as I look at the young, this is a guy, by the way. This is the young brother over here with the goddamn. Is that a leather collar? Excuse me, a denim collar with pearls in it. This is crazy. I don't trust men who don't get shape-ups. All right, let's go. Quick emergency meeting. I was recently searching for my name online and found way too much personal information, which brought me down this weird rabbit hole of how that could have happened, and found out that there's companies out there called data brokers that will sell your data to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And it's a nasty, disgusting feeling knowing that there's bad actors out there selling my information, selling your information for profit. But that's why I'm recommending today's sponsor, Aura. Now, I use Aura to automatically remove my information from these sites and keep my information off. But they do other things as well, such as bank fraud and identity theft alerts, VPN access. But guys, utilize my link down in the description box down below for a 14-day trial. At least see if you've been compromised. Privacy is king in this day and age, and you should know if your information is out there. So again, utilize my link, aura.com/MTR, in the description box down below to try 2 weeks free. That's way more than enough time to see if your personal data has been exposed. Go now.
more conversations like this, more open communication, more kind of discussing what we can do as a collective to kind of overcome these issues, rather than just going, right, we're in a gender war, it's me against you. How about you learn what women want? How about you learn what men are looking for? How about we all do self-development? How about we all go on healing journeys? How about we take this stuff seriously? And men need to start realizing, okay, it's time to forget about the patriarchy and what the patriarchy told you, because the patriarchy told you that you need to suppress your emotions and you need to perform this unrealistic expectation of what masculinity
Look at her body
is,
language.
but none of you are happy.
She's
All of you
disgusted.
are empty and miserable and walking around like robots, really and truly. So
No, we're not.
get out of this system, okay? Because the patriarchy has damaged you. It's made you entitled. It's made you see women as sexual objects. It hasn't given you a fair chance in life. And now we have things like the male loneliness epidemic. But it's because men have brought it on themselves. It's nothing to do with women. Women are here trying to reach you guys, trying to feel you guys,
Bullshit.
trying to connect with you guys. But the patriarchy told you that you needed to suppress your emotions, that you needed to
Look at him
perform
agreeing.
masculinity 24/7, and you can't be vulnerable and you can't surrender. Well, now we have these problems. So if we start now, and the younger you are, the better, right? And this is why I feel like Gen Z have got a great start at this, and this is why they seem to be having more better relationships and connections with people, because they have more knowledge and they want to learn and they want the tools and they want to, you know, Gen Z are doing therapy. So let's move with the times. Men, it's okay to seek help. It is not okay to suffer. There is no shame in seeking therapy, in getting a mindset coach, in doing things like that, okay? So I think once we do that, people are going to start feeling a bit more like, okay, we can connect with each other. Because there really is a wall, because men are not allowing women to reach them. They have this idea that, like, you know, if I tell a woman about my true emotions, she's going to use them against me. She's going to weaponize them. But this is what the patriarchy told them. Women actually want men to open up. Women actually protect a man's spirit. They want you to drop the mask and be real with them.
I would say,
Okay, this is fascinating watching these men in this room yes her to death as she explains what she thinks is a fair point, all right? She's trying to convince us that patriarchy is the villain and that masculinity is the disease. In her world, men ain't shit, men are lonely, entitled, undeserving of, because they're not showing anything that is of value to women. We all see women as objects. We're being told that we're too strong, that we are not in control or in tune with our emotions, and that we are unable to live up to this high requirement of manhood. And somehow taking this much more feminine paradigm while being a man is going to be beneficial for men. She describes the male loneliness epidemic, which I describe as the male solitude epidemic. Solitude in it being that I choose to be on my own, as opposed to loneliness being that I don't want to be on my own. But she also forgets that the majority of these traits, which she might describe as toxic masculinity, these same traits are the ones that kept generations of women and children alive. Men who swallowed their fear, got over the feeling of being overwhelmed to protect their families. Men who pushed the envelopes of invention through emotion to work jobs that they hated to substantiate a house where everybody can eat. Men did not have the luxury of falling apart or getting time or gaining time to get in tune or in touch with their emotions when life got hard. But she sees masculinity, and specifically masculine men, as inherently toxic and are an evil to be dispatched. The idea that the male loneliness epidemic, if you want to describe it as that, has absolutely nothing to do with women, as she said, is absolutely insane. Men are rationalizing solitude because they are done with the inequalities that they feel when they get into a long-term relationship, one of which you may provide more liabilities or debt to that relationship than gain or being an asset to that relationship. And to the men that are watching this, she would prescribe that men be a lot more vulnerable, kind of like the foundation of what women are. And shout out to Mr. Jason Wilson. He talked about this. Look up the word vulnerability. It means exposing a weakness. The last thing that you want to do as a man is expose a weakness, because then that weakness can be utilized against you, male or female, physical weakness or mental weakness. And time again, men have had that used against them in arguments, in breakups, and in custody battles, amongst other things. Masculinity is not the problem. Good masculinity, moral masculinity is not the problem, nor is there a current patriarchy that you are being oppressed in. Stop it. And in fact, moral masculinity is what you continue to sidestep while blaming the very men who hold this world up.
safer environment for men and a safer environment for women, right? Because when you look at who
Turn down the
most
makeup,
men are
baby.
murdered by, like they're mostly murdered by men. And when you look at who most women are murdered by, they're mostly murdered by men, right? So just taking it back like right to the root, like just safer environments for both is in thinking about why is it that, for example, a woman walking at home at night, if she sees another man, might cross the streets because she's worried about that she might be in danger. Why is it that, I think you mentioned before, like men who are rejected might move towards the right? Like, why is there this entitlement, I guess, for access to women? A woman should never be scared of rejecting a man. I mean, there are obviously ways that you can say it, but you should never be
Shout out
scared
to
of
Rhoda.
saying that you're not interested in someone, because that's your own person, it's your own body, and it's your own personal space. So when I'm speaking about safety, I literally mean like being able to go out and do whatever the hell you want to do without being in fear of like whether you're going to get home that same night or not. And that goes to men and women, because most perpetrators of violence are men. So just taking it back straight to that root, like just a healthier and safer environment for both men and women, essentially.
I think before everyone steps in, I
It's
just
so
wanna make a-
hard to listen to these conversations. While I can acknowledge components of what she's saying, how many times do you guys like look outside of a bar and you see a young lady with her finger in some guy's head, or like a guy trying to stop a young lady from like irrationally getting into a fight with larger men, right? Like thinking that she has the power and the strength, right? Like to combat these people, right? Another example is laws exist, but there's more laws that are baked in to check men than women, okay? The laws grow across all genders, all right? But hear me out. For example, there is laws against violence, and there should be, but there's not laws against false allegations, okay? There's not laws against falsifying paternity, okay? Paternity fraud. There's not laws against women-focused crimes. You lie on a DNA test, even though you know that you had sex with 2 different men within a given week, and you put some man's name up on it because, you know, he might have more assets or you want to be with that man more, and that man finds out a couple of years later that it's not his. You then don't have to pay him back for all of his fathering for all of that time, nor do you go to prison for lying. A bad man may get arrested for assaulting or even killing another man. What they don't talk about is that a chick could have set up that lick up on Tinder. What they don't talk about is that that girl was a family member that then said that that other man sexually assaulted her when he never did. So then in retribution, that other man goes and ends that man's life. These are real stories that actually happened. But the woman who initially lied or tried to destroy that man's reputation, there's no laws there for her. We could do this tit for tat all day, and it's not necessary. But feminism only focuses on men being the problem while not acknowledging that there's some women out there that ain't shit either.
Really big point before we move on. I mentioned before about gender fluidity and different gender identifications, right? And we have to be, you talk about safety and we talk about the trans community.
You're right, yeah.
That's a really big community that we have, that we can't forget in this discussion.
Yeah.
I know my privilege as a heteronormative, the gender I was assigned at birth is the gender I identify with, and therefore even as a woman, I have a privilege in a society where my gender is recognized in a particular way. So we must also remember how the patriarchy does affect all these different people. Women do contribute to the patriarchy. There's no such thing as a patriarchy where the woman does not prop that up. We've always been collaborators with it, whether intentionally or not intentionally. So I just want to make sure, as we move forward with this conversation, or as people have these conversations elsewhere, that we don't perpetuate those binaries. There's more than one gender involved. Safety is for all of us, and we all prop up. It's all in our best interest to dismantle the patriarchy. So I just don't want to forget like our trans brothers and sisters and gender neutral family in this conversation as well, because they're not here to represent themselves. And I wouldn't want a society where, again, it's heteronormative, it's gender bias again. So that's just my 2 pence in it.
I think for me, it would
Whatever political party that her ideology represents, I want absolutely no part of it. I want no part of it, baby. What is that? For all the biological ladies down there, how is it that you feel about this, by the way? The idea that people that were born with penis call themselves what you are. Does that make you right? Like, irrespective of something happening to them and they got to go to the doctor and they need a type of a medication that is more suited to the actual gender that they are or the actual sex that they are. How does it feel to have people share your same, right? Like they're sharing your bathrooms, right? Like, yeah. How is it that you feel about this question for the ladies? Let's go.
be a society where, like you said, there's no gender wars. People aren't against each other, women aren't trying to come against men and men feel, I guess, less threatened by women. It would be nice seeing media where it's more representative of, genders doing different things to kind of, again, break the patriarchy and break that down. Men being more open to having therapy and listening to women and not feeling the need to be this alpha male, and actually just, it's okay to be emotional and open up.
I think a key thing what will help society is, like you said, representation in media. I feel like even on the flip side of like the male gaze, like people might be divided on this. I feel like the representation of men, even in the Barbie movie, like Ken was a bit like thick-skinned, like he was a bit stupid in the way he was, and like there wasn't really a balance. But obviously, that was like a reaction to like hypermasculinity and like patriarchy, which is obviously understandable. And it's also people who are in spaces such as yourself or you, he's really representing well and having these conversations and creating safe spaces. We live in a time where there's just been a revival, particularly in spirituality and religion, whereas men and women have had enough. When they feel rejected, they lose themselves. There's no one to go to, and then they find themselves in like a church or a place of worship, and then they find community there. I know for me, like I find a real community in my church, and of course people are learning and unlearning with terms of representation of men and women in the church, but in a time where like I can have a normal conversation with a female and it doesn't have to be anyone trying to flirt or anything, but just making friendships, making friends, and also building these strong communities. And yeah, particularly definitely in media and having these right conversations, and also for young people, just to really to gather together in a safe environment. And to talk it out, men need to talk it out.
Where's this man's father?
Not always just come together just to like play games and just like see who's matchup.
Me as a creator.
I should have done the live stream because there's just so many points that I want to make within this. But you guys notice what he said as well is that the young brother's trying. He referenced the Barbie movie and how Ken, I didn't see the movie, but apparently he is being characterized as a blundering idiot, which is, of course, Barbie movie, mostly women are going to watch. Demonstrate that the man is a blithering idiot, stupid, overly macho, Johnny Bravo, whatever it is. We understand that for women's focused content, they love feeling smarter, more intelligent, more powerful than a man. We understand that. There's a market for that. But what he then followed up and he said is that it's okay because of patriarchy. So he's rationalizing women demonstrating men this way, and he's not fighting against it because he's in the belief that he actively lives in a patriarchy. Aaron goes my entire point and why it is so critical that men put their young balls on the table and continue to be men. Because how can you take a look at our society here today and say that these women are oppressed? They're not oppressed. So you're rationalizing that as a man, you can be characterized as a blithering idiot, dumber than a bag of rocks for a patriarchal regime or institution that currently doesn't exist. By the way, although it currently doesn't exist today, there's been no civilization known on the face of this earth that was not civilized without the utilization of patriarchy. Was patriarchy all fair? I'm not saying that, not arguing that. And in fact, I understand and agree with many of the ideologies of first wave feminism, but we're not here now. We're in this degree of feminism of, oh, woe is me, I am a victim, when you currently are not. And now as a woman, I will control men to act, think, and feel and emotionalize and rationalize like me because this is the female paradigm, so it must be better than men. Masculinity is what restrains chaos. Masculinity would stop all of this gender fluid ass shit, amongst other things. But they allow this to happen because either they're a white knight, uneducated, a simp, or want one of their dry ass viscous innards.
Me as a creator, as an online content creator, and someone who's a public figure, it's important that I, make sure that I put out the right message. There's a saying that says, whoever controls the media controls the mind. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are out there who've been put on a pedestal, they have an opinion and they have a way of a method of approach that unfortunately people don't have a mind of their own, and they want to go and follow that, idea of thinking, which isn't always the greatest, which can lead to, unfortunately, toxic, conversations and things like that. But yeah, I think people should be more collaborative, and people should also understand that I am a man, you may be a woman, or you may have your own gender that you identify with, and we have our own qualities. That doesn't make us any different. That doesn't make us any less. But we can work together to see how we can both create a unit that can help society be a better place.
Somebody give this man a squat rack. I am tired of this bullshit. My testosterone has dropped 20 points. This man over here is dressed like a slut. What is the meaning of all of this? Yo, you cook, baby. You cook, you fricassee, you done. This is the fall. Listen, this is why it is so critically important that as American citizens, we continue to fight against this fake-ass, weak-ass bullshit, because this is not the future that we need, all right? This is the opposite of the future that we need. The victimhood is rubbing off on these young men as they are being manipulated, that the way that they naturally think, feel, and act ain't shit. Listen, the marketing push behind feminism has to be one of the greatest brand representation, right? Like, this is essentially selling salt to a slug. Like, this is selling snow to a penguin, baby. Like, what is, like, listen, I'm trying here, all right? I'm trying. I am trying my hardest. Conversations like this remind me of the importance of this platform. And, the irony within this is, like, women like this, like, they don't understand that the majority of men not feeling like men is not due to, like, right? It's due to the changes in you all, right? Like, the change since hormonal birth control, right? Been jacking y'all hormones up. The change since the sexual revolution. And now we can see the most beautiful women's cakes. And now modesty is lost, and you are teaching us to select less than favorable women, right? Who have wanted to live consequence-free in their 20s and don't think that all of the souls that they put into their bodies is going to represent their relationship with men into the future. It's the change of the value that men get in relationships now that you prioritize effectively being a man, right? Like, out-earning men and being boss bees and conquerors and competitive and right, confrontational, right, and at odds with. It's all behavior that men are taking a look at it, and they're saying that the juice ain't goddamn worth the squeeze. But it's just beyond interesting to watch these men just absorb these talking points against themselves as if you, like, were evil at birth, right? Like, you can't control it, right? But you have to change it. The fact of the matter is that when you take a look at numbers such as, the homelessness rates, the self-deletion rates, right? You take a look at false allegations against men, the inadequacies within the family court system, divorce court, child support, right? You're looking at a system that seems to not only punish men, but also a system that blames men for what they have gotten themselves into via feminism. The irony of continuing to push that there is no gender war while pushing the way that men should behave, right? And your synopsis of what a real man should be like, right? Like, I'm going to be at odds with that because I know at a fundamental level, that's not how I operate. And newsflash, women who want men don't want them to operate like that. Maybe on the internet, right? They want to feel safe and pretty, like, secure, like all this other shit. But, like, women are attracted to men who stand on business, who mean what they say and say what they mean, not men that are indecisive and confused and expose their vulnerabilities and are criers out, and like, they don't like that ish. And it's also interesting that so many of their talking points is like rewriting men at the same time of, like, also being in a having the LGBTQ alliance, because, like, a lot of these women, right, like, in their spare time, they're licking carpets. I mean, let's not all. All right, but I'd say there's a lot more feminists. Like if you look at the ratios, the averages, there's a lot more women that are feminists that also, you know what I'm saying, like to munch on occasion, right? And many of them end up in lesbian relationships thinking that, well, maybe it's just the man that's the problem, right? And they often date butch women, right? Women who model men, but they don't have eggplants, right? Which I would think that the majority of women that think that is attractive is their trauma that is leading them to feel that the man-looking woman would be the answer to their problems. And in fact, if you look at the numbers, that's like the highest divorce rate is women-on-women relationships, right? The point that I'm trying to get here to is that no, erasing masculinity in favor of your version of what a man should be is not the answer. The answer is strong men, okay? And wise women. You're not wise yet, so, hopefully you'll get there through looking at more content like this, all right? But we can be equally valued just for different things, right? We can stay on our lanes and work as a yin and yang to solving some of these things, not only for the community, but our own families. But this restructuring of men while also not understanding what a man is, you can keep doing that all that you want. I just don't think it's going to turn out in the way that you want it to turn out. All right. Well, all right. I think I gave you guys, I'm going to try my UK accent a little bit. Well, all right. That was something, isn't it? Now it's time to bid you guys adieu. For we have given you the content for today. I want you guys to rate. If you're still here with me, I want you to rate my UK accent on a scale of 1 to 10. I've been working on it. How does it sound? All right. It kind of sounds more Australian. You guys let me know. All right. Nevertheless, questions, comments, concerns. Y'all already know what to do. Mediocre tutorials and reviews at gmail.com. Guys, light up the comment section. How is it that you feel about the content placed in for you for today? I should have done a live stream in regards to this, but here we are. All right. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to today's sponsor or for continuing to support the channel. Guys, keep on utilizing my link. You guys are killing it down there. All right. You need to remove your private information off of these public websites. Utilize Aura to be able to do it. It's who I trust. All right. Now, if you use my link, you get 2 free weeks. All right. At least utilize it to go see if your private information has been exposed. Go right now. All right. Until next time. Peace.
So, without further ado, MTR, cut through the BS like we in charge. No cap with the rappers like steel bars. I'm packing and rapping like here we are. Mediocre tutorial reviews. Like, comment, share my views. Come up and I paid my dues. Big step in my black way shoes. MTR, he break it down, yeah, it's MTR. Check out the sound when it's MTR. No one put it down like it's MTR.